Good morning. I'm Catherine Ford with the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board. First of all, I just wanted to say welcome to our first webinar training. Due to our most recent legislative session, Educational Aide has now become a campus-based program. Okay, first of all, just to begin with the PowerPoint, hopefully everyone was able to download that from your handouts. We're going to go over the changes that were made to the program that become effective actually on September 1 of 2009. Due to the passage of House Bill 2347, effective fall of 2009, now the institutions will need to begin processing the educational aid exemption applications. The coordinating board, we sent memos to all of the institutions, to all of our current applicants on June 24th. Those are also part of your handouts. And all of the school districts were notified on June 25th. So if you're needing a copy of the memo that was sent to your institution, that is part of the handouts, which you'll be able to download. The reason why we're providing you this training webinar today is actually on June 30th, or after June 30th, it'll be your responsibility to begin processing the applications, which means you will have to determine your students' eligibility. Effective July 1, 2009, all 2009-10 educational aid exemption applications will be processed by your institution. So if you receive an application from your student, this means now you will be responsible for reviewing all three parts involved. That's Part 1, Part 2, and Part 3. Applications received prior to July 1, that is applications that we've received here at the Coordinating Board, we will process those. We will continue to produce the eligibility letters, which means we will notify those specific students and their school districts. But anything received after July 1, any application received after July 1 will be returned to the institution to process. Okay, just to let you know what the Coordinating Board continued responsibilities will be, we will continue to provide you with the adjusted gross income calculations for each fiscal year. As part of your handouts, we've included the AGI limits memo so that you can view those AGI limits based on the student's marital status. We'll continue to process the request for reimbursements, again in the handout portion. May I ask you to hold for just a moment, please? Just a note, you can, if you choose to watch this broadcasting through live meeting, you would be able to do so. You can actually watch via live meeting and listen through the broadcasting. Just a note of information for you. And back to requests for reimbursements, we will continue to process those as normal. That request for reimbursement form is a part of your handout to download. We're going to continue to update the eligibility website so that you can keep track of your request for reimbursements only. Effective July 1, you will be determining your students' eligibility. Therefore, we will not be providing student eligibility via this website any longer after July 1. You'll only be able to view your requests for reimbursements. We'll continue to provide the educational aid exemption application, instructions, and any other pertinent information via our website, which is www.collegeforalltexans.com. So this is just a list of the items that the Coordinating Board will continue to do. That's AGIs, requests for reimbursements, updating the site for view of your process requests for reimbursements, educational aid exemption applications, instructions, and any other pertinent information. We'll continue to do those items. Okay, as far as institutions, you have new responsibilities and you also have continued responsibilities. Your new responsibility is going to be to review Part 1 of the educational aid exemption application, which is the student's information, and we're going to go into detail a little bit about what you need to look for. You'll review Part 2 of the application, which is the school district's portion. You will continue to complete Part 3, which will be a norm for you. You will also determine the student's eligibility. It will be your responsibility to notify the students and school districts of that eligibility, and you will need to verify the students' continued employment with their school districts before you make the spring awards. And we'll go into detail. First part of the application, first of all, we're speaking of the 2009-10 Educational Aid Exemption application. You may download that app from your handouts. The first part is the student's information, part 1. Please make sure these items are completed. Name, address, city, state, zip, everything that's listed here, you need to make sure that's completed, with the exception of ethnicity, which is optional. If that item is left blank, that is okay as far as part 1 is concerned. Part 2 of the application, which is your middle section, is the school district information. Please make sure that if the student is qualifying as an educational aide, the district rep must initial that item. If the student is qualifying as a substitute teacher, the district rep must initial that item. Number 4 must always be answered yes, because it's important that the student is employed during the term that they're receiving exemption. Certification section must be completed by the district rep, signed, dated. And also, if you are concerned about a school district and whether or not it's a Texas public school district, we've provided the Texas Education Agency website so that you may verify those specific school districts. Okay. Part 3 of the application, this is a norm for you. This is not changed. You've always completed Part 3, which is basically verifying the student's residency status. They must be a Texas resident. Marital status, selective service. You have to calculate need. It's either going to be FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, or the adjusted gross income method. And again, you have a handout with the AGI limits. Certification must be completed by the director of financial aid. Unless the director has assigned someone else to sign for them, then they can enter the director's name and say, for example, Jane Doe signing for, and just put your name. Okay. Award notification, it is now your responsibility to notify the student if they have been approved for the educational aid exemption, and it's also your responsibility to notify the school district once that student has been approved. And we're going to give you a little bit of examples as to what you can do in order to notify the student and the school district. Request for reimbursements. We have a request for reimbursement form as part of the download, which you can, part of the handouts, which you can download. This is also a norm. This is not changed. We'll continue to process your request for reimbursements. Once you've determined your student's eligibility, complete the request for reimbursement form. It's self-explanatory. Make sure you provide backup documentation for the items that you're billing. The exemption covers tuition and mandatory fees only. The institutions classify the mandatory fees. Exemption does not cover books, class fees, or lab fees. Therefore, you're going to bill us for tuition and mandatory fees only. And please make sure your backup documentation equals the dollar amounts that you are billing us. We process your request on the 15th and the 30th of each month. Sometimes we're able to do more, but these are your two dates, the 15th and the 30th of each month. Once those requests have been processed, we'll send you an EFT listing, basically letting you know the students that have been paid and their dollar amounts. And again, these funds are sent electronically. And if you need to verify your students' request for reimbursements, you may log on to the Coordinating Board's eligibility website, which is listed here in the presentation. A checklist of items. The next two slides are actually slides you can print and just kind of keep as a little guide, because these are the items that you're going to need to view to make sure your approvals are in order. If you're going to be processing the applications for your students, number one, please make sure that your student is working toward a teacher certification. Students that are working toward a criminal justice degree are not eligible for this program. Again, make sure they're working toward their teacher certification. If the person is qualifying as an educational aide, they need 1 school year full-time aide experience within the past 5 years. This is for their initial exemption. For the first time they receive the exemption, they must meet this requirement. subs need 180 full days of service for their first exemption. Once this experience has been acquired, that individual is free to serve in any capacity, but they have to have the classroom experience under their belt before they apply to the program. Applicant must always be employed during the term they receive an exemption. Child support is a new question on the 09-10 applications. If the student is paying child support, they must not be more than 30 days delinquent. This is only for students who are indeed paying child support. County district number must be included. This is on the school district's portion. District rep must initial either aide or sub, whichever route the student is qualifying. School district certification must be complete. As far as institutions are concerned, please make sure you classify your students as residents of Texas, a Texas resident. They must register for selective service unless they're exempt. Demonstrate financial need. And of course, the financial aid officer must certify Part 3 of the application. And also, before we get to the question section, I just want to advise you that we're going to have two scheduled webinar sessions. That's going to be on next Tuesday, July 7th, again from 9 to 10. And the third session will be Tuesday, July 21st from 9 to 10. So if you need to join in on either of those days or both, we encourage you to do so. And of course, we're going to have our workshop here in Austin on August 11th that you will actually be able to attend. So just to keep those dates in mind, July 7th, July 21st, 9 to 10. And now we're ready for your questions. And just to keep in mind, this will be around 15 minutes because I'm sorry we got started a little late due to the technical difficulties, but we will answer as many questions as possible within that time span, and questions that we cannot answer during this time span we'll have to address after the webinar training. One moment, please. Just want to go through the top 5 questions that I feel that will be asked to you. First of all, the first question has to do with the term aide, educational aide. A lot of individuals will ask you, what is an educational aide? An aide is a person who is employed by a public school district in Texas working in the classroom directly with students. So an aide is an individual who is working in the classroom directly with students. If an individual contacts you and say, but I've been working with the school district for 5 years in the office, that is not sufficient. We need 1 school year of actual classroom experience if they're applying for the first time. If they've worked with that school district for 5 years as in a clerical capacity, even though they might be considered a clerical aide, that is not an educational aide. So that's going to be one of the top questions asked. Second question, when does a 1 year of educational aide experience need to be completed? The experience must be completed before the individual applies to the program. We have some students that will enter the dates for the upcoming year, for example, August of 09 through May of 2010, which means they plan to work as an educational aide, but they have not worked as an educational aide. So we're asking for 1 school year of full-time educational aide experience before they apply to the program, which means if they started as an aide August of 2008 and continued in that position through May of 2009, that is considered 1 school year, and their eligibility begins the very next term, which would be summer of 2009. Question number 3, does the student have to file a FAFSA? There's actually 2 ways to demonstrate financial need. FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, is one route, and then the adjusted gross income method, the AGI, is a second route. What we normally ask the students to do is to check with their institutions to find out whether or not the FAFSA is required, because there are some institutions that need the FAFSA on file before they can move forward. And then there's other institutions that will say to the student, just attach a copy of your 2008 income tax return, and we'll use the adjusted gross income method. But basically, that is a decision that your institution can make. That is whether or not you want the student to have the FAFSA on file. I've always thought it is a good idea to do that because it's a win-win situation for the student. The exemption is only going to cover tuition and mandatory fees. We're not going to cover books, class fees, or lab fees. But when a person qualifies for the FAFSA, which is federal funds, that means they can use those funds to pay for the items that the exemption cannot cover. For example, books, which are very expensive. Also, we've had students to ask if they're in a defaulted status on the FAFSA, would they be able to qualify via the adjusted gross income method? And of course, the answer is yes, if they're able to meet the AGI limits that are there based on their marital status. So yes, a student can be in a defaulted status on the FAFSA and still qualify via the AGI method. And another question I want to reiterate, or actually one item, that would be question number 4. If a person wants to participate in the Educational Aid Exemption Program, they must be working toward their teacher certification. If an individual is not working toward their teacher certification, then they are not eligible to participate in the program. Next question, can substitute teachers participate? And of course the answer is yes. They need to have documentation of at least 180 full days of service within the past 5 years, and then after that experience has been met, they are eligible to participate. And basically, after an individual has met those requirements as an aide or as a substitute teacher, then they're no longer bound to the aide or sub position. They may actually, at that time, serve in any capacity. As I mentioned earlier about the clerical capacity, only after an individual has given us 1 school year of classroom experience may they then be allowed to work in the clerical field or part of the program. So after they've met the original requirement, then yes, they're free to serve in any capacity. So basically, those are some of our top questions. And I'm sorry to say, but we're not able to see the questions that are being presented to us at this time. And we're just going to give it a couple of minutes to see if we can get this rectified so that we can view your questions, and then I will be able to answer some of those for you today. So we ask that you give us just a couple of minutes so we can be able to view the questions that you're sending to us. Thank you. Also, I just wanted to say, I see the questions are being handled by my colleague, Ms. Joella Martinez. So we just want to say thank you for everyone who was able to join us today for our first webinar training. Again, I want to apologize for the technical difficulties that we had in the beginning, but everything worked out, so we're very happy about that. Also, again, just want to invite you to join us for our next 2 webinar trainings, which again are scheduled for July 7th, next Tuesday from 9 to 10, and then the last one, the third one, on July 21st, which is another Tuesday from 9 to 10. And also, just to let you know that the Grants and Special Programs area is having our annual financial aid workshop at the J.J. Pickle Center on August 11th, and of course, we encourage you to attend that workshop as well. Also want to, at this time, thank Ms. Sophia Rodriguez, again, Ms. Joella Martinez, and everyone who helped us to have a successful webinar training. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful day.